Thank you for tuning in to North Carolina Real Estate with Damon Carter. This show focuses on the ins and outs of real estate as it relates to buying, selling, purchasing, investing, financing, rehab, whatever aspect of real estate that you're involved in. This show is going to be timely and informative for you when you're making decisions. Make sure you take notes, jot down the information that we discuss because it will help you in whatever aspect of real estate that you're involved in North Carolina. Thanks again for tuning in, and I hope you enjoy the show. Welcome to North Carolina Real Estate with Damon Carter. On today's show, we have one of our local agents, Andre Dockery, who's been in the real estate industry for several years right now. And today we're going to talk about the basics of home buying, basics of purchasing. We're going to tap into his brain, get all the information that we can to help you on your journey in real estate. Andre, how you doing today?
I'm well.
Good.
Thanks for having me, by the way.
I'm glad you came on the show. First, I want to ask you, how long have you been in real estate, and what is your experience in real estate? Give us a little background about Andre.
Okay. Well, I've been in real estate now going on 15 years.
Okay.
I think I did the math on that. Yes, going on 15 years. As far as me, I'm a small town country boy.
Yeah.
Small town country boy from a little town called Nakina. And yes, Nakina, North Carolina, it actually exists. It's on the other side of Whiteville, North Carolina.
Okay.
And pretty much, I came to Charlotte in 2000, end of 2001, beginning of 2002, and I came here to do real estate.
Okay.
A buddy of mine kind of got me interested in it and came on down and kind of got started in that scenario there. And I started new home sales.
Mm-hmm. Who'd you start with?
Little company called, it's a big company, some might be a good or bad from other people's view, but it's a little company called Beazer Homes from back in the day. They're not long with us anymore.
Okay.
But that's another conversation.
Gotcha.
But started there doing new home sales for about 2 years, and then got into general brokerage. And in about 2006, started my own firm, and pretty much going strong from there. So it's been fun. It's been real fun.
Now you said general brokerage. What does that mean?
Oh, good question. All right. When I say general brokerage, if you're a new home sales agent, for the most part, you sit in a model home and you represent the builder, seller per se, only. In general brokerage, you actually are actively in the market.
Okay.
And you represent buyers and sellers, and you sell all homes or all real estate transactions.
Gotcha.
If you're doing just basic residential general brokerage.
Okay. So let me ask you then, what area do you service predominantly?
That's another good question, because if you talk to any real estate agent, the first thing we'll say is, "Oh, I do it all.
Yeah.
Typically, because how Charlotte is centrally located, how I do it is, I do it based on county. If somebody asks me what area should I serve, I'm going to say obviously Mecklenburg,
Okay.
but Gaston, Union County, Cabarrus, and obviously I would dabble in York County.
Okay.
It's part of South Carolina, but it's right there on the border. So I'm pretty much going to cover all of those counties. If I said I had a favorite, I don't know. It's like wherever, if you have a buyer or seller, it's like, hey, you'll get familiar.
Okay.
And pretty much a lot of it is very familiar to me.
Okay, so, and you said 15 years or so you've been in predominantly in the Mecklenburg and surrounding area.
Yeah.
How has the market changed from, 2005 or so to right now?
Wow. Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah, because I know, when I was working on the finance side, we were going through that bubble.
That's right.
And that's
right.
kind of where we worked together.
That's right.
And so you were
That's
peaking
right.
up, and interest rates were like 4 or 5.
Yeah. And we thought we were good.
Yeah.
Pretty much from my experience, what I've seen is that when we first started, like in 2002, when I was in it, everybody was buying a house.
Uh-huh.
If you had a pulse, you could buy a house. Financing was easy. If you were breathing, we could probably get you a loan. If you ask me that now, I don't know if that was a good or a bad thing. Mm-hmm. And the market, like you said, it bubbled.
Yeah.
And eventually it popped. Now, obviously, I'm not going to get to the reason about why my views of why it popped, or if it was lending, or if it was subprime lending,
Okay.
or people have their general expectations of it. But I will say that, as far as it's like anything else, what goes up really fast without any laws to protect it will come back down really hard, and that's what happened. Mm-hmm. Since then, I've watched the city grow. I've watched a bunch of farmland turn into a bunch of housing developments. But it's been a lot of good too. It's been a lot of growth.
Okay.
Charlotte obviously didn't suffer during those times like a lot of other cities and whatnot. Charlotte kind of, their growth went down a little bit, but we still kept steadily growing here. And as you can tell now, from then to now, obviously, wow, you know, we're back basically here and still growing. And Charlotte's just and its surrounding areas are continuously growing. So if I had to say the major differences, you know, it's like anything else. We rode the curve. We rode the curve. And from then to now, you know, are we on an upswing? Definitely.
Okay.
And are we headed in the right direction? I think so.
Okay. So I guess it's fair to say because of the financial industry here in Charlotte, it kind of pushed talent to this area.
That's right.
Then, of course, that translates into new home
That's
purchases and building and things
right.
of that nature.
That's exactly right.
Someone coming into the city new,
Okay.
job relocating them here,
Okay.
what tips would you give them for seeking out a real estate agent?
If someone is brand new, okay, that's a good question because typically speaking, if someone's brand new and they don't know the city whatsoever, then the first thing I'm gonna say is, hey, you know, take your time and get to know the city. Get to know some people, and typically if people move down, they're just gonna move down for family reasons or a job. Ask people for the most common thing, referrals. Say,
Gotcha.
hey, look, I'm looking for an agent or whatnot, or obviously go online, you know, check the remarks on people and whatnot, but the most familiar way is obviously a referral, and get you a couple of them.
Okay.
Don't just do one, get a couple of them. Find you an agent that's familiar with the area and get to know the agent. Most people think just by looking at stats, sometimes if that agent's a good fit for them, but that's not necessarily true all the time.
Okay.
The ability to find someone you're comfortable with, that speaks your language in a manner, treats you like you want to be treated, because you know they're going to be helping you with something that's extremely important.
That's true.
So you probably need to like them. You probably need to like them. So to get to know you process is important. So obviously referral, find you one that you're familiar with, check them out real good, get to know them, and once you feel comfortable enough about them, just knowing them. Obviously, you know, you want to find out what their knowledge base is, how long they've been doing it,
Gotcha.
what services they provide, you know. Do you feel comfortable with the information they're giving you?
Yeah.
And I always tell people also too, you know, cross-reference it. You know, just don't trust the person's word, cross-reference it. And at that point, if you feel comfortable with it, find one, select them, and move forward. You know, but if the top three things I'd have to say is, you know, find someone that's familiar, meaning get a referral. Make sure the knowledge base is good.
Okay.
And then obviously make sure you trust them.
Okay.
And that's the basics of it. And from there, obviously, you know, when you're talking with them and getting the information from them, because typical consumer is a little different now. Used to be, only thing an agent had to do was really just show you a house.
Gotcha.
Well, thanks to the internet and Redfin and all these other sites that people look at, an agent has to be a little more broad with their information. Not only just you need to know how to find a house, but you obviously got to know some level of finance.
Gotcha.
To a degree that makes everybody feel comfortable, such that if I meet someone and I say, hey, looking to buy a house, and I ask you about your price point, I'm asking you why that price point. How'd you come up with that number? What payment are you looking for, and why? And does it fit? So all these are things that when you're finding an agent, it's not as easy as just rolling through the Rolodex saying, pick that one person. You kind of do a little homework there too.
Yeah.
Do some homework with that.
Now, buyer, they're looking for a home, and they're looking for an agent that's familiar, that has a good reputation, and that can service the needs of that particular client. Should an individual be concerned about having an agent that only works on the sales end, or an agent that only works on the purchase end? So, and I mean that in saying, if do agents concentrate on just working for people looking for homes, or do they just concentrate on people who are selling homes?
Okay. That's going to be real agent specific. Now, what you'll find in the market is that some agents will say, hey, I'm a listing agent.
Okay.
Meaning that's just what they do. They only want to list homes.
Gotcha.
And then other times you'll hear someone say, I'm a buyer agent only, where I don't really represent listing and selling. I represent the buyers.
Okay.
And then, you know, obviously you'll find those agents that do both.
Okay.
I would probably ask that a person finds the agent that does both. Well, the
Gotcha.
reason why you want to do that, because you need to have somebody that's going to see it from both sides of the playing field.
Gotcha.
From both sides of the spectrum, meaning if someone says, hey, I'm going to buy a home and I want to make an offer, then as an agent, I need to be able to kind of give you an idea of what the listing side is going to come back with you with, because I do that side as well.
Okay.
So the ability to have an agent that does both sides is obviously going to be an advantage, mainly because you have to have someone that's going to really know that how this whole transaction works in its entirety, not just one side. You know, if I'm representing the buyer, I know that I got to have my loan straight. We got to make sure the house inspects, make sure the house appraises. But also, if I'm representing the seller, you know, I need to know, is that house, are the comps there?
Exactly.
I need to know, you know, does the seller actually have the ability to sell?
Okay.
You know, are we going to have any title issues? And the only way you're going to know that stuff if you had experience on both sides. So again, my advice would probably be to find a person that's well-rounded on both
Gotcha.
sides of it.
Okay. Now, how can a person verify that the person they're talking to is even an agent? Because I can get a business card made up and say, hey,
Yeah, actually, you're right.
you know, I want to sell you this house.
You know what? That's true.
Yeah.
It's simple as going to the North Carolina Real Estate Commission
Okay.
and putting in their name.
Okay.
Yeah, because there are people who are out there acting like they're agents and they're not. Y'all need to stop it. But
I got you.
or people who want to be agents and doing real estate illegally, stop it. Okay. But
Okay.
you can just go to the North Carolina Real Estate Commission website and you can verify.
Okay. And is there a difference between a realtor and a real estate agent?
Okay, that's a very good question.
Okay.
By definition, a real estate agent is a person who holds a real estate license.
Okay.
A realtor is pretty much that agent is subscribing to a code of ethics board.
Okay.
All right, meaning that if I'm a realtor, I have the set code of ethics that I am saying, hey, I subscribe to.
Okay.
Pretty much now in Mecklenburg County, if you're a real estate agent, you're doing active real estate, you're going to be a part of the realtor organization.
Gotcha.
So I mean, you know,
So it's like a trade organization.
Yeah, it's more or less. It's like
Okay.
a trade organization that, as once you become a licensed agent, you know, you pretty much become a realtor. You just take a class, you subscribe to the ethics, which someone should subscribe to those ethics anyway.
Okay.
But they're pretty much one and the same. It's just that once you're a realtor, just you have a code of ethics that you're saying you're going to abide by.
Yeah. Now I know North Carolina is what's the term, caveat emptor or something like that, where it's buyer beware.
All those good fancy words that impress people. Long story short, if I could say something about North Carolina, North Carolina is a consumer-friendly state.
Okay.
Very consumer-friendly. The North Carolina Real Estate Commission's total job is to protect the consumer from us mean old real estate agents and to make sure we're not taking advantage of y'all and all that
Gotcha.
kind of good stuff that we may or may not do. And
Okay.
hopefully y'all think we don't do, but you know, that's why the commission is there.
Gotcha.
So in North Carolina, you know, they're pretty strict on us.
Okay.
You know, we have to answer to any complaint, and no matter how silly we think they are, or sometimes how legitimate they are.
Gotcha.
Anything that a consumer complains about has the right to go to our governing body, which is the Real Estate Commission, and you know, we have to make sure we're together.
Okay. Quick question before we go to break.
Okay.
Is there a set commission for a real estate agent as a buyer?
No, there's no set commission. You know, however, one might say there's a usual or a typical
Okay.
commission of what people hear, but everything is always negotiable.
Okay.
You know, depending on the situation, and that firm chooses to set their commission.
Okay.
And once a person chooses a firm, the firm will disclose to the buyer seller what their fees are.
Gotcha.
But
Gotcha.
everything's negotiable.
Okay.
Everything else.
We're going to take a quick break and come right back. So stay tuned. We'll be right back with our show, North Carolina Real Estate with Damon Carter. Thanks a lot. Are you looking to sell your home? Are you looking to buy your home? Tune in to North Carolina Real Estate and get accurate current information about real estate in North Carolina. Tune in to our show every second and fourth Thursday of the month, starting at 10 o'clock p.m., and get the information you need to make the right decisions at the right time. Welcome back. You're tuned in to North Carolina Real Estate with Damon Carter. I'm Damon Carter. I'm here with my guest, Andre Dockery, who has over 15 years of experience in real estate here in North Carolina. And we're talking about the basics of home buying and a general knowledge of real estate in North Carolina as a whole. We left off talking about choosing a real estate agent, our commissions fixed with the real estate agent, and so forth. Now we want to get into the actual process. Okay, a person's come to you, you show me, my home, like the home where we are right now. We're in my home, and Andre actually showed us this home, represented us in the purchase of the home. And after we picked the home out, then the first thing we did was put in an offer, which we call a purchase agreement. Okay, with the purchase agreement, what does that entail? What does the purchase agreement actually?
Okay.
What is it telling a client?
Okay. All right. So, with a purchase agreement, just so you know, the North Carolina Real Estate Commission has a standardized North Carolina real estate, what is called an offer to purchase and/or purchase agreement. However, that's not the only one.
Okay.
It's just a lot of agents we use it. Why? Because the Real Estate Commission basically okayed it.
Gotcha. Okay.
However, an actual contract can be just saying, hey, I agreed to buy this house for X amount price, and the seller agrees to purchase, to allow you to buy it for that amount. So,
exactly.
Those type things that can be held in the court of law. However, back to your question about what an offer to purchase pretty much entails. Pretty much, you see a house. It's on the market, you present the offer. Once it's accepted, at that point, truthfully, that's when the work kind of begins.
Gotcha.
Because just because you're under contract doesn't mean it's actually sold.
Yes.
That just means, hey, you know what? We're engaging and agreeing that if everything works out, we'll consummate this deal and complete the sale. Well, there's a lot of things in between that actually happens. Example being, from the time you actually go under contract with the home, the first thing a lot of people will do, obviously, is you want to have a home inspection done. You want to have a pest inspection done. You want to make sure you've thoroughly looked into the home. And that's just the physical part, just dealing with the home. However, if you're using a loan to purchase the home, you obviously want to make sure that your loan is in good standings. Typically with that offer to purchase, there's a reasonable amount of time or days that you have to verify whether you want to move forward with the home or not. Now, this is just in the state of North Carolina. We have what's called a due diligence clause in there, which basically is a time frame from the time you go under contract with the home to another time frame that allows you to actually investigate the home. Typically, that's for a negotiated amount directly to the seller, but it does give you that opportunity to say, hey, I want to move forward or I don't.
Gotcha.
All right. Now, also with it, like I said, home inspection, loan. Make sure you investigate the title of the home. Make sure it's a good clean title. Make sure that if you need to do a survey or if you need to do anything that would influence your decision, appraisal, make sure you have that done. You have a certain amount of time. Now, if that time is ended or the due diligence period comes to a close, then either one, you say, hey, I want to move forward, and at that point in time, if you have earnest money, all that's on the line at that point in time because you're deciding to move forward. If you haven't had enough time to actually still investigate the home, then at that point in time, you can simply ask for a due diligence period extension. And again, I hope I'm not getting too much into
you're fine.
into the whole contract of it all, but you can ask for an extension to further investigate the home. But once you're comfortable and you've kind of got your ducks in a row from there, then you will proceed to getting to what we call the closing. And basically, a closing is when everybody kind of gets together and signs their paperwork and money's funded. And the buyer gets their house and the seller gets their money. And that's pretty much the basics of it. Okay.
There's a lot you said in there.
I know.
So we're going to do, I'm going to take out some of the bits and pieces that you said. So we have the purchase agreement in place. That pretty much gives us a
starting point.
A starting point. So you've already presented an offer for the price. The sellers agreed to that offer.
Agreed to it.
And then, so the first part of the contract is due diligence. Okay.
Due
you
diligence.
get a certain time period to investigate whatever it is you want to investigate with the home. Okay. That could be 2 weeks, a month,
2 weeks,
whatever
3
you
weeks,
negotiate.
However many, how much time you need it. Now, you know what? I forgot something. I'm glad you mentioned that. Now, again, in the state of North Carolina, we have due diligence.
Okay.
South Carolina doesn't necessarily have that. You can add that addendum to it.
Gotcha.
But in the state of North Carolina, it's actually in the North Carolina Real Estate Commission contract or
Okay.
approved contract per se. So the main thing about that due diligence period is, and this is the bigger part, is when you do the home inspection, lots of times if it's an existing home, there may be some repairs.
Okay.
Now, during that time, you present what you like repaired to the seller. And I'm
Okay.
speaking from the buyer perspective, by the way.
Gotcha.
You present what you need or would like to have done to the seller.
Now you have to do this in the due
In the
diligence
due
period?
diligence time period.
Okay.
Remember, during that time period, this is when you investigate the home and you make it your business to find out whether or not you want to proceed or not.
Okay.
But again, the main thing is that home inspection is a big one. At that point in time, you decide, if I want some repairs, we go to the seller. Hey, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, these are the items we found that we would like to see repaired. Now, the seller does not have to do anything you request.
Okay.
That's a negotiation part.
Gotcha.
If the seller agrees or disagrees with some things per se, at that point they'll commit to those things to be done prior to closing, or sometimes they'll commit to them to be done after closing.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Well, let me ask you this. Is the seller responsible for providing any disclosures prior to the due diligence period?
Great, missed that out as well. Typically, when an offer is presented,
Okay.
there are two addendums. There's two major addendums that typically come or should be signed up front unless it's an as-is scenario.
Okay.
And those two addendums are the residential property disclosure
Okay.
or the seller residential property disclosure. This is where the seller is upfront telling you, hey, these are the things that are good, bad, and ugly about the house.
Okay.
They have a duty to disclose any material facts of things that are wrong functionality-wise with the home. And on that addendum, it has those boxes.
Okay.
Now, but the seller can also, on that residential property disclosure, the seller can elect to say no representation,
Okay.
which basically means I don't know.
Got you.
All right, just basically means I don't know. Now, if they do that, does that mean anything's bad with the house? No, they're just not representing that anything is or is not.
I see. I
So
see.
if a person has that residential property disclosure, that still does not say I shouldn't get a home inspection.
Got you.
Because what if the seller really just didn't know?
Okay.
So it's still on the buyer's side to do their due diligence in getting a home inspection to make sure that they know what they're getting.
Now, it would seem like, especially from my experience, when we purchased this home, in an older home, you may have more of that no representation box checked.
Pending, exactly.
Okay. Now, on a newer home, let's say you got a brand new construction, that box really shouldn't be checked, should it? If they built it from the ground up and you were the first owner.
Okay, that's going to be one of those things. It depends as well.
It depends.
Okay.
Okay.
Let's talk about that for a second. Remember I was talking about contracts,
Uh-huh.
and I said, hey, well, the North Carolina real estate contract, and this is the one we typically use in general brokerage.
Gotcha.
Well, the thing about it is, with a builder, they're going to have their own contract.
Uh-huh.
Now, understand I know it's going to sound weird, but understand that a builder's contract is going to be builder friendly. I mean, this is the contract that their attorneys wrote for them.
Exactly.
Doesn't mean it's bad, doesn't mean it's illegal or anything like that, but there are some differences in their contract than the regular residential North Carolina Commission approved contract.
Gotcha.
So the expectation is when you buy a new home from a local builder here in Charlotte, that the home should be new. Majority of the time, the builders will still allow you to have a home inspection, right? And just like anything else, a home inspector will find something wrong. It doesn't mean it's bad. It could be a light bulb or something or whatnot, what have you. But I still say get one. But the expectation is it definitely should be, in shape that it's new.
Okay, so we should, coming from the purchase side, I'm purchasing a home, especially when you just talk about a builder, they have their team of attorneys that draws
their
up
contract. That's
draws
right.
with the contract for
That's
them.
right.
So ultimately, the contract that they present to me is a contract that benefits them, which then, of course, like we've been talking about, would behoove me to have representation.
It would extremely behoove you to have representation. Now, and I want to use that word carefully when I say benefits them. From the builder's perspective, they have some things that they have to protect themselves from. The major thing that a builder has to protect themselves from, which is in their contract and why it's different, is the building time frame.
Gotcha. Okay.
If we're saying, hey, I have to build a house in X amount of time, well, some things are going to be out of their control. So you might see some clauses in there that gives them an enormous amount of time
Okay.
to build a house that they don't really need, but they have to have something to protect themselves from. Also, typically in the regular track builder contract, that if they'll have something in there that's talking about using their financing team, as an incentive. Okay, so at that point in time, you're gonna have to kind of consider those things too. But definitely, if you have an agent that is pretty local in the market and pretty much has done business with that particular builder, then at that point, that builder, that agent per se, should know their contract. And if you're uncomfortable with it, then the agent takes the time to get that contract up front, sit you down, go over that contract with you, and at that point should be able to explain it to you before you even sign it with the builder.
Gotcha.
That makes
Gotcha.
sense.
It does make sense. It does make sense. And so, with the new construction inspection, you still should get it.
Yes,
But
that's
definitely,
my opinion. I mean, some
Okay.
people will say, well, maybe not because it's new and it does have a bunch of warranties on it, and it does have some things that's going to protect you for at least the first year, and then the mechanicals will be protected for 2 years.
Okay.
So some people may consider it a waste of money, but my whole thing is it depends on the person.
Okay.
If you want to sleep at night and you want to say to yourself, hey, I've done my due diligence part, I say, you know what, get the home inspection, and then you're not taking any word from anybody, you're aware.
Gotcha. Okay, back to the purchase agreement we were talking about. What's negotiated in was negotiated out of the purchase agreement. And I'm walking to a home, see the refrigerator,
Okay.
brand new top of the line LG.
That's right.
We have to have that refrigerator. Does that refrigerator come with the home?
It depends.
Okay.
In a home, you have certain things that are considered as have to stay, which are fixtures. And these fixtures are there unless the seller says, hey, there are fixture exceptions, means they're going to take them away. Other things are considered personal property. And I'll get back to a description of what fixtures are, by the way. But other things are considered personal property, meaning that they're negotiable, meaning that these are items that the seller can take with them.
Okay.
One of them being the basic top of the line LGI
Okay.
refrigerator.
Gotcha.
But however, if a buyer wants it, they simply ask for it to be included in the purchase price. Now the
Okay.
seller has the option to say no
Okay.
or negotiate. All right. But let's talk about some fixtures or things I consider built-ins that are expected to stay with a regular purchase sale.
Okay.
Not a foreclosure, but a regular purchase sale. Stove. It's a built-in. It's going to stay there. Dishwasher. It's a built-in. It's going to stay there.
Gotcha.
However, a washer and dryer, those are considered personal property items. So they more than likely will be leaving with the seller unless negotiated up front in the offer to purchasing contract
Okay.
that they will stay. So by definition of a fixture, if I had to give an idea or explanation of a fixture, if you have a house and if you take that house in your hand and you turn it upside down, things that fall down, those are considered personal property items.
Okay.
The things that stay, those are considered fixtures. That's a general, example of how I kind of explain that. But hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, it does. So, also negotiating with the contract, can we negotiate monies that the seller can contribute to help me with the closing, or how does money being contributed? How would money being contributed by the seller apply to the deal itself? Let's say that.
Great question. All right. When you present that offer, typically most people will ask for what we consider closing cost or buyer expenses. Lots of times people don't understand that, when it comes to closing costs, or a consumer will think closing costs are everything that costs to close a loan. Well, technically that's not true. There's closing costs. There are also things that are considered to be prepaids.
Okay.
Lots of times, as a buyer, you typically want those things covered, or at least want to ask the seller for the monies to do so. You put that in the offer to purchase. So let's say, for example, if this is a regular example, you're buying a home and your closing costs are $3,000. You ask the seller for it. The seller at that point in time doesn't have to give it to you up front, but those funds will come out of the net proceeds of the home.
Okay.
All right, and those funds will be used to go towards the buyer
Gotcha.
closing costs.
Okay. So the purchase contract is pretty much
pretty tight.
That's the entire deal.
That's the entire agreement.
So whatever you want out of
You better put it in the
home,
contract.
you better put it in the contract. And, you know, I heard a real estate broker always say that if it's not in the contract, it's not in the
doesn't
deal.
count.
Okay, so let's take another break right now. We're going to come back shortly, and we're going to pick up where we just left off with Andre Dockery. You're with Damon Carter on North Carolina Real Estate with Damon Carter. Welcome back to North Carolina Real Estate with Damon Carter. I'm Damon Carter, and we're picking up with our guest, Andre Dockery, local real estate agent here in Mecklenburg County. And Andre, we've been going over this purchase contract and all of these moving parts that go on with the contract. So we talked about the disclosure that the seller is supposed to provide at the time of contract. We've talked briefly about the inspection and what we can ask the seller to contribute to the closing as it relates to the inspection and as it relates to funds to assist with closing. Now, how do we know the person that we're under contract with actually owns the property?
That's another good question. Actually, and it makes sure that's covered in that contract. Yet again, it clearly states that the person selling you the home needs to have good, clean title.
Title, okay.
Right?
Yep.
So they have to own it in order to sell it. You know, and
Because you could walk up and agent knock on the door,
That's right.
and it could
That's
be the
right.
person renting the house
And
saying, "Hey, we're going to sell it."
right, and typically, and I won't even say typically, but all the time it should happen. As an agent, especially representing the buyer, the first thing we do is public information of who actually owns the home.
Okay.
And we actually match that up. So when you're turning in an offer to purchase on a contract or whatnot, you put the names of the owners of record. You know,
Gotcha.
we just don't pull them out the sky. You know, we verify it, and it's public information.
Again, and that's why we need representation
That's why
when
you
we're
need
purchasing the home.
representation.
Okay, so that's that's the value of
a
having
real estate
a
agent.
good real estate
That's
agent. Okay, so we found out that they're the owner,
Right.
but how do we know that the title is clean?
Okay. Well, again, in that contract.
And actually, when we say
Right.
clean title, can you explain what clean title means?
Okay, what clean title basically means is there's no encumbrances. All right, let me get even more basic than that.
Okay.
There's nothing that should be able to prevent them from conveying this property from seller to buyer.
Okay.
Okay. And when I say things that could prevent them, tax liens.
Okay.
You know, if they owe more than what they're trying to sell it for, that could be a problem.
Gotcha.
If the seller is considering filing bankruptcy or something, that's information you're going to know.
Okay.
If the seller is under bankruptcy protection,
Okay.
all of those things count. However, majority of the time, a lot of these things we do up front. I mean, as an agent, we're going to do up front. Well, why? We're going to get a property detail report.
Okay.
You know, that's going to tell us exactly what stage this house is in. Is it in good standings?
Okay.
Has there been anything that would make us a little leery of what's going on, or have to have any slow pays, or is it in pre-foreclosure or anything like that, or is it a short sale status? All those things we should be able to do up front. So by the time we get to the point of offering, we should know. Now, if there's a listing agent on the other side of that transaction, then we're definitely going to know. Why? Because, you know, even though we're on opposite sides of the ball at that point in time, we still work together. As a buyer agent, with the listing agent, we can pick up the phone and call them, hey, is there anything we should know?
Okay.
And at that point, the listing agent, and again, we're talking from the buyer perspective, has the obligation to let us know if there's anything, if this house is in distress, or if there's anything we should know, old HOA dues that haven't been paid,
Okay.
are those things going to be taken care of, outstanding balances, liens against the property for whatever reason. Those things we're going to know up front.
Yeah. Now, I keep hearing the terms buyer agent, seller's agent. How does an individual know who's the buyer agent, who's the seller agent? Is there agreement that the agents have with the buyer or the seller that designates their representation and their obligation?
You're dead on with it. That's exactly what it is. Typically, here's what's going to happen. Whatever side of the transaction an agent is on, you first get what is called a working with real estate agents disclosure.
Okay.
And we're to give you that at our first opportunity of actually meeting and you making us aware that you're considering purchasing a home.
Okay.
You know, I had to tell you, hey, look, I'm a real estate agent, right? This is the Working with Real Estate Agents disclosure.
Gotcha.
With that disclosure, that basically entails what each party does.
Okay.
It tells you what the listing agent will do, and it tells you the job of the buyer agent. And it also tells you what a dual agent is. Not to
Okay.
get too much into that, but the dual agency basically is when you have an agent that's basically representing both sides of the transaction.
Okay.
Which is not that unfamiliar. It happens more than a lot actually. So you'll have those agreements or disclosures in place up front,
Okay.
right? So it tells you what everybody's job is. Once you're aware of what everybody's job is, then there's another agreement called a buyer agency agreement that says this buyer is electing to have you represent them. And there's also what is called a listing agency agreement,
Okay.
which says the seller saying to the seller, the listing agent saying to the seller, you're agreeing to allow me to list your home for a fee.
Yeah.
Okay. So those are the basics. Now, obviously, with those type of agency agreements, they're exclusive right or non-exclusive right, meaning that if I'm representing a buyer, I might not be the only one.
I got you.
All right.
Okay.
But that has to be disclosed.
Yeah.
But that's why, as an agent, I'm more than likely going to want to make sure you only want to work with me.
Yeah, so
Which is a buyer agency. That's right.
when we do our show on how to become a real estate agent, then we're going to
Yeah,
bring you back.
we'll talk about that a little more in
little
detail.
details there.
And that'll be more beneficial to the actual agent.
Exactly.
How that actually works.
So we jump back and we got a clear understanding of who represents who,
Right.
and we got a basic understanding of the contract, what's to be included in the contract, disclosures that should be there, the inspection. Okay. Now, as we get closer to the closing process,
That's right.
is it required for an attorney to be involved with the transaction?
Well, majority of the time we'll have one, but in the state of North Carolina, you don't necessarily have to have an attorney.
Okay.
Okay, you have title companies that do closing all the time.
Okay.
I personally prefer to have one, me
Yeah.
personally, because, 9 times out of 10, I want the person that has the legal license behind it, and I like the word attorney, but, you don't necessarily have to have one. Title insurance companies have been coming up all over
Okay.
that are doing closings. But,
Now, is that relatively new to the market? Because
it's not new, it's becoming more popular.
Okay, because I remember usually there's always been an attorney.
Involved, but you see them popping up a little bit.
Yeah, and they're closing agents.
Yes,
That's
they're closing, not necessarily attorneys, they're closing agents.
Gotcha.
You're correct.
Okay, and they're not biased in
No.
the transaction.
Yeah, let's talk about that a little bit too. When it comes to attorneys or closing agents and whatnot, the attorneys per se, after the contracts have been all negotiated and the buyer has their loans and whatnot,
Okay.
right? The attorney is not making a decision for or against anybody.
Okay.
They're actually just following instructions.
Okay.
All right, long story short, if they have a copy of the contract that the buyer and seller have agreed to, they have exactly how this should go.
Okay.
If a person is getting a loan, they get closing instructions from the lender. Notice I said closing instructions. So
Okay.
the attorney at that point is simply following the instructions. So
Okay.
they're not biased. At that point, their job is to make sure they get the title search done, to make sure everybody's doing what they're supposed to do in the contract, and make sure that buyer, loan-wise, is bringing everything to the table that the instructions say do.
Okay.
So sometimes, we'll get a little confused and think that, when it comes to real estate transactions, that attorneys, because it's the buyer's attorney, that you're going to get, shorthanded a little bit. But 9 times out of 10, with a regular closing transaction, that's not how it is at all.
Okay.
It's just, it comes to being comfortable with who you're working with.
Who you're working
if that
with.
closing attorney or closing agent provides you a service that you feel comfortable with, then you'll want to use them.
Gotcha.
But to say that, this person's just, I got to have my own attorney here because I'm going to get shorthanded, lots of times, not so much unless you're doing some negotiation at the closing table.
Okay.
But majority of the time, a lot of these contracts, they're done prior to. So by the time you get to the closing table, it's more or less, again, the closing agent or closing attorney at that point in time is basically just making sure that everybody's doing what they agreed to do.
Gotcha. Now, who pays for this attorney or the closing agent?
Okay. Typically, again, these are closing costs
Okay.
sometimes. So the buyer has their section of closing costs, and the seller has their section of closing costs. So everybody's
Okay.
responsible for their own.
So it's
but
part of a whole.
It's part of a whole. So
Okay.
lots of times these monies, again, will be agreed upon up front. So
I
if
see.
if I know exactly how much my funds are going to be, or I have an estimate, then I'll probably try to either I'll know about it or I'll request some of those funds from the seller.
Okay.
But again, that's all up front. By the time we get to the closing table, we know what we have.
Got you. Now, in there, you mentioned a type of insurance that I think is very important for us to
Okay.
identify. You said title insurance,
Okay.
not homeowners insurance, but title insurance. Explain title insurance to us.
Okay, what title insurance is basically there in the unlikely event that when you close on your home, let's say that a lien on the property slipped through the title search. or
Okay.
Slipped through or somebody claims ownership to that property. You know, you want to be protected from that.
Okay.
So let me give you an example. Let's say if a lien comes up at that the attorney just missed.
Okay.
But then a year down the road, they want to say, you owe this money because it's your house.
Okay.
Well, title insurance is there to make you whole again such that you're protected. You won't have to pay for it because they've done a title search at the time you purchased the home. You have title insurance to protect you from that.
Okay. Now, in North Carolina, is title insurance required?
In North Carolina, I think with pretty much with most loans, it is, don't quote me on this, but, and I can only speak from North Carolina, if there's a loan involved with a piece of property, and it's
Okay.
a loan,
Yeah.
then you're going to have title insurance.
So, actually, the title insurance protects the bank.
To make sure that
More than
nothing
anything,
comes
okay.
up. Well, I don't even say more than anything because you don't want to be one left holding the bag.
Exactly.
But if the bank has some interest in that property, you know, and again, in the state of North Carolina, a person actually owns the home. They just use the home as collateral
Yes.
to get the money from the bank.
Exactly.
Then it's in the bank's interest to protect, to make sure that home
The
is
asset,
clean,
yeah.
right?
Okay.
So I mean, it kind of works for everybody.
But for a cash deal, title insurance is not
Yeah,
required.
cash deal, it's not necessarily required because the lender is not saying anything. You know, but it will a person buying cash, with, you know, they're probably gonna want to pay for it.
Okay.
You know.
Now, you said we get that information from public records as far as the title search.
Right.
When you say public records, where will we find that information?
Typically, a lot of people can go online, but you know, it's right there at the Mecklenburg County Courthouse
Okay.
or whatever jurisdiction you're in or county.
Okay.
you're in.
So you go to
Find
like the
information.
Register of Deeds
There you
or
go.
something like that.
There you
Okay. Now, let's say, title insurance, back to that real quick. How far does the title insurance company go back in the history?
Wow, that's a good question. That I don't want to guess, but I mean they're going to go a decent amount of time back.
Okay.
At least through the ownership of the first or that person who's selling the home.
Okay.
They'll at least go through their ownership. I can't
Okay.
remember if it's 10 or 15 years. I just can't remember.
Okay.
But I know they at least will go through the time they've owned it to make sure nothing's skipped or been missed from the time the sellers.
Yeah, because I went online and I believe that the requirements for the title insurance companies go back 30 years.
Yeah. I didn't want to misquote.
No
but
problem.
the main thing is just they want to make sure everybody's protected.
Okay.
And they'll
okay.
go back a decent enough time to make sure that happens.
Exactly. So we got the title insurance, we got the attorney in place, we're at closing. So when we get ready to come back from break, we'll pick up right here where we left off.
Okay.
Again, we're at the closing now. We got our title insurance in place. We're getting ready to get the keys to the home. At the closing table,
Right.
I think this is where a lot of people get confused.
Okay.
They think I sign the papers, I get the keys to the house. Is that true?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
And on the same day, the expectation, which is very normal for people to get confused by that, because most people, it's logical to think if I'm going to sign paperwork, I've signed my name, the seller signed their name, you're supposed to give me my keys.
Okay.
However, that's not quite how it happens. What happens is everybody signed. There's still some background work that has to be done.
Okay.
Largely that money has to be there.
Okay, that's true.
So just because
That's
you have
true.
a loan doesn't mean that it's funded. When I say funded, meaning the closing agent or closing attorney has the money in their account.
Okay.
However, the biggest thing about it is once you sign it actually has to be recorded
Okay.
at the courthouse to say that you are the new owner.
Yeah.
Okay.
And see, that's where I got
Right.
confused when
Right.
we closed.
I remember that.
There was a settlement and there
right.
was a closing.
right?
And I didn't know that there was a difference between settlement and
We use
closing.
that word interchangeably,
Yeah.
settlement, closing. It's actually the same thing. But the biggest thing is once you have the settlement or you have the closing per se, is there is a delay from the time, because you just signed the paperwork and everybody signed. The attorney typically now they will e-record, but
Okay.
there's a little bit of lag time. So they typically wait for the funds to hit their account if it hasn't already.
Okay.
Then they record at the courthouse,
Okay.
right? They make sure it's on record at the courthouse. At that point in time, then the attorney does the disbursements. And when I say that, that means the seller gets their proceeds from the seller of the house. The real estate agent, we get paid.
Okay.
We get our commission from it, and obviously you have the freedom to take ownership of the property at that time, meaning that you basically get your keys.
Okay. Wow, this is good information. So we're going to take another quick break here. Again, you're with Damon Carter at North Carolina Real Estate with Damon Carter. We're with my good friend Andre Dockery, and we'll be back shortly. Welcome back to North Carolina Real Estate with Damon Carter. I'm Damon Carter. I'm here with my guest, Andre Dockery, local real estate agent here in the Mecklenburg County area. And we're going to wrap up our show and kind of recap what we talked about today. A couple of things that we kind of skipped over a little bit. But first, when should someone, when do they know that they're ready to purchase a home? How do I know I'm ready to purchase a home today?
You know, people purchase for different reasons. You know, it's strictly going to be dependent on the person. We could go, not to go with too much into the benefits of home ownership and whatnot,
Yeah.
what have you, all that, tax breaks and all that stuff. But the main thing is, it just totally depends on the person.
Gotcha.
If you're a first-time home buyer and you feel like you're mature enough and you're ready and you're tired of renting, buy.
Yeah.
Okay. If it's a scenario where you're moving in town and you don't want to rent, buy. You know, but if it comes to technically saying, how, when am I ready? Well, you're ready if you don't have cash to buy a home. When you're qualified, you know, you can go to your local lender, or if you come to an agent should have some relationships where
Okay.
they have with lenders to help you get qualified. And at that point, you can kind of see where you're at and do your homework if you're a first-time home buyer. However, if this is not your first rodeo, then obviously, you know, the first thing most people who've done it before, they're going to go to their bank first because they've done it before. But typically, if you're a first-time home buyer, then, you know, I would suggest, you know, go talk to an agent to refer you to a lender, and then that's kind of your starting point.
Okay.
You know, you don't want to put the cart before the horse. You first want to make sure your finances are in order, and then from there, go to actually purchasing the home.
Okay.
That answers your question.
And when you say finances in order, you know, when we're talking about getting the finances in place, first, do you show homes to anyone who's not qualified?
You know what? Again, here's my preference on it. Typically, when I meet someone, right, I'm going to ask a list of questions. We're going to pretty much go through a long list of question and answer period, and depending on their situation. But 9 times out of 10, like any agent, you know, we're going to want you to be able to actually buy before we actually start showing you.
Fulfill the contract.
Yes, we want you to actually be able to buy. However, you have some scenarios where, you know, somebody can buy now, but they won't be here for like 5 or 6 months.
I see.
They're from out of town. So if they're from out of town and, you know, and I know they'll be buying later and they want to get a view on the market, then, yeah, I'll still show them homes at that point. So it really just kind of depends.
Okay.
But just for just general knowledge, you know, before you try to buy, be willing and able to do so.
Gotcha. Now, would you recommend that a home buyer go into communities and start to kind of canvass the area and to see where they want to purchase, what they want to purchase, things of that nature? Should they go knock on doors and say, hey, can I see a home?
That's a good question. Well, again, I say this a lot. I apologize for it.
No, you're
It
fine.
depends.
Okay.
If you are local to Charlotte, then by all means, before you do anything, you can drive. You typically, you know the area, you know the terrain, and most people typically have an area that they want to kind of stay in.
Okay.
You know,
Yeah.
if you're new to Charlotte, don't try this by yourself. Get an agent to kind of give you some advice on what areas would benefit your needs.
Okay.
And some people buy houses based on job location. Some people buy houses just based on area, period. That's
I
all,
see.
no matter what their job is. And but majority of people are going to combine those things along with price point.
Gotcha.
So, you know, if a person says, hey, well, you know, I want to buy his house, you know, because it's a nice house, but if it's way over your budget, then why are you looking at it? So,
Why are you looking? Okay, now in your experience right now in 2017 in the Charlotte area,
Right.
what is the average price of a home?
That's a very good question, and the reason why it's a very good question is because Charlotte has grown so much.
Yeah, it
So
has.
so the price influx is huge.
Okay.
So typically speaking, and again, not to get too technical with it, I would say if a person's buying a home, the FHA loan limits typically now in Mecklenburg County are around the 280 to 290. Don't
Okay.
quote me on that. All right. So majority of the time, I always say the average. I'll base it on what the FHA loan limits are.
Okay.
And so right now, I mean, my average person is going to be around 280 to 290.
I see.
All right, going from there. But that doesn't mean that the only people buying houses are that price point. It just means if you average them all up, for me, that's one. But you have other agents who price points are a little lower, and you have agents whose price points are a little higher.
I see.
So, and I don't want to just gauge it, because if you throw $1 million property, a couple of $1 million properties in there with some $150,000, that's going to say the average is like 500. That might not be exactly accurate.
I understand.
So that average of home buying is going to be area specific.
I see. And with the interest rates being so low, that's allowing people to
That's right.
purchase more.
That's right.
More home.
They can qualify for more.
Okay, so, and as we're looking in the Charlotte area, are you seeing more new home construction, or are you seeing people purchasing refurbished homes in older communities? What are the trends right now in this area?
I mean, Charlotte still has a good new home builder presence.
The reason I ask that because I see so many apartments coming up right now. I mean, everywhere.
The situation in Charlotte now is that the price point is getting so much higher,
Okay,
right? So the rental market is now it's getting pretty hot in Charlotte.
is a booming.
Yes, it's booming just because affordability for houses
Yeah.
now are going up. So if people need to buy now. I mean,
Okay.
this is only going to get higher because Charlotte's becoming a major player
Okay.
in the nation here. So these prices can only expect for them to go up.
Now, with the influx of people coming
People,
into
that's right.
the city, is that influx of income pushing the price up and then pushing the locals out?
Well, here's what's going on. It's just your basic rule of supply and demand. There ain't but so much land to build on, all right? And as the Charlotte area actually grows, then the demand is going to go up, but the supply necessarily didn't go up.
Exactly.
So land is going to cost more.
Okay.
You know, the building materials is going to cost more.
Okay.
And not necessarily, that doesn't mean that the job, people got a bunch of raises either, though.
Exactly.
So the affordability doesn't mean, just because the prices went up, doesn't mean the person's affordability went up along with it.
I understand.
However, if you got an influx of people coming from out of town, having new jobs who can afford it, then sometimes it works out and sometimes it does hurt the local.
Okay, so for the homeowner that's looking to sell, is this a good time for them to sell?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, if you're selling, but understand if you are considering selling, you do understand a person can make a pretty decent profit now, but just as you're selling, you also got to buy back into a higher price market as well.
Yeah.
So I always have a reason for selling outside of just, hey, I just want to collect my money. You know, if you got to still have a place to live, you need to consider that too. You know, because just because you're selling in a hot seller market, that means you have to buy back into that same market if you're going to be staying local.
I see. So when you said the rental market is really going up, should a home buyer a homeowner consider rental rather than selling?
If you're asking, make sure I'm understanding your question correctly.
Should they consider renting their property, becoming a landlord?
That is specifically going to be dependent on that seller.
And the
If they're
situation.
say, hey, look, I want to keep this house for a while, for whatever reason, no matter what the market.
For that investor who has no experience, would you recommend that they get into this market now, sight unseen?
I would recommend that. Gosh, you asked some great questions, man, because it just depends on the financial stability of that investor.
I see.
A lot of these TV shows will lead one to believe that you can pretty much get in for nothing.
Yeah, yeah.
Or they'll lead you to believe that you can buy a home and you can sell it tomorrow and make all this money, and it's just not true.
Okay.
If an investor is a cash-heavy investor, can they make some decent property in here and decent money here in Charlotte? Absolutely.
But cash heavy.
Cash-heavy because
Okay.
stuff is up right now.
Yeah.
stuff is up right now. It'll continue to go up, and there are some investments out there where people need to sell for a discount to get from under situations, and an investor can find those deals. But the person who's extremely new, you know, I'm not sure if I could say, hey, you know what, you need to invest right now and expect to buy low and all this kind of stuff. You just need to do your homework. You know, just don't get out there and doing it by yourself. You know, don't go out there just hey, I'm just ready to buy a house for an investment and call yourself the person who's going to flip this house and try to do like they do on TV.
Hire a professional. You know,
hire a professional.
Because either you're going to invest the money into your education by losing it.
Either way, you're going to pay.
Yeah, one way you're going to
pay.
You're going to pay for the education.
That's right.
I see. Well, you know, I'm looking forward to this series of North Carolina real estate, and definitely want to have you back on the show.
Great.
Recap today. Purchasing a home in this area is a good thing to do.
Beautiful thing.
Make sure that you have your financing in place.
Please.
Seek out professional help. Seek professional
help.
And you said the real estate commission. So if someone introduced themselves to me as a real estate agent, I can go to their website, to the real estate commission's website.
You can simply just ask their name, and if they're an agent, ask for their license number. And you can verify us. Got you.
Now, in this market of tremendous demand in this area, does that increase the commissions for the real estate agents at the same time?
It's like anything else. If by the pure nature that we work off commission, if prices go up, then obviously our commission goes up. That's a good thing.
Well, the commission's rebate is associated with the actual price of the home.
That's right. And that's just a typical thing. Again, commissions per se are negotiable, so I don't want to lead anybody to believe there's a standardized rate. But like anything else, you know, if we're working on commission based on sales price and the sales prices go up, that obviously helps us. You know, so, but ultimately, any type of growth in real estate is going to help the real estate industry as a whole.
Okay, and one more question. What type of nest egg should a buyer have in place when they're ready to purchase?
All right, the typical thing that I always tell people, you minimal, we want to have at least 3 months of your mortgage in place. And minimal. The advised, I'd say have 6.
6 months of the mortgage, not your monthly expenses.
6 months of your mortgage is the typical thing. In the majority of the time with lenders per se, they'll typically want to know that you at least have 3 months of your mortgage. You know, and that's strictly for your first-time home buyers. Obviously, the higher level purchases, you know, you're not going to really have those type of concerns. You should be financially stable enough to already have your finances in order. But for the first-time home buyers, you're looking at kind of coming and buying a home per se. You really want to kind of make sure you have that 3 to 6 month cushion in there to protect yourself from any type of things that happen with purchasing a home that are unknown.
And that's 3 to 6 months after the closing.
Yes.
To have,
have that. That'd be a good. Now I know that's tough to some people, but that's what I typically try to advise.
Okay, great. Thanks again for tuning in to North Carolina Real Estate with Damon Carter. Andre, thank you for coming on the show.
Welcome.
Appreciate your wealth of knowledge. To get more information about today's show, go to DamonCarter.com and access all of our links and find out more about Andre Dockery. Really appreciate you tuning in. Look forward to seeing you in 2 weeks. Don't forget, every second and fourth Thursday, 10 o'clock p.m., same place, same time. Look forward to seeing you be prosperous and successful in life. Thank you for tuning in to North Carolina Real Estate with Damon Carter. I hope that today's episode was impactful and informative for you. For more information about my guest or myself, go to my website, DamonCarter.com, and stay connected with us. I hope that you're successful in all of your endeavors and I hope that you're prosperous in life. Stay tuned to us every second and fourth Thursday of the month at 10 o'clock, where we give you the right information at the right time for your endeavors in real estate. Take care, be safe, we'll see you soon.